Alright, here's a second example for solving a word problem using a quadratic equation with rational roots. So you know you're going to need two equations. One of them is going to have to do with this area equals length times width. Okay, the length of a rectangle is 3 meters more than twice its width, and the area of the rectangle is 77 meters squared. Find the dimensions of the rectangle. So we want to know what the length and width are. And we know the area is length times width, and we know that's 77. And then we're going to get our other equation from this first statement here. The length of a rectangle, that's L, equals 3 more, that means you're adding 3 to something, than twice its width. You're adding 3 to 2 times W. Okay, so here are your two equations. Here's the equation we're going to use, and here's our second. Move this over here. I'm going to write this as length times width equals 77. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to replace L in this equation with 2W plus 3. Okay, so now we see, okay, we need to distribute this W into the parentheses here. And that's going to give us 2W squared plus 3W, that's supposed to be a W, equals 77. Now we have a quadratic equation, so we want to get the 77 over to the other side, so we're going to subtract it from both sides here. We don't have any like terms, so we just rewrite that as 2W squared plus 3W minus 77. Now we need to factor this. So we multiply the 2 times negative 77 together, and that gives you a negative 154. And we take our middle number here, and that goes here, and we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us a negative 154, but add to give us 3. So again, you can do this systematically. 1 times 154, you can divide that by 2, so we can write this as 2 times 77. And you can use that, you add up the digits, 1, 5, and 4, that adds up to 10. That's not divisible by 3 or 9, so I know it's not divisible by 3. This isn't divisible by 4 because that's not an even number, so I can't divide it in half again. It's not divisible by 5 or 6 because 2 and 3 don't work, so 6 can't work. But 7 does, 7 times 22. And then you can keep going. 8, no, doesn't work. 9 doesn't work. 10, no. 11, yes. 11 times 14. Okay, now I went through that a little faster than sometimes it takes, because sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. Okay, and then I have two numbers that multiply to give me negative 154. So that means I'm going to have one negative and one positive number. But when I add those two same numbers together, I get a positive. So that means my bigger number is positive. My smaller number is going to be the negative. Okay, and so you can see this is going to be a negative 11 and a positive 14. So I'm going to rewrite this 3W as a negative 11W plus 14W. So 2W squared minus 11W plus 14W minus 77. Okay, and that's going to equal 0. I'm going to kind of just ignore that for a little bit and just factor this. So I'm going to group the first two terms together and the last two terms together. I'm going to common factor. Okay, what can I take out of both of these? I can take out a W. So that leaves me with 2W minus 11. And here I can see I can divide both of these by a 7, so I'm going to take out a positive 7. And a lot of times if this is plus, I'm factoring out a positive number. So usually that helps me to determine. Whatever I do, I want my factors in here, when I'm common factoring out the 7, I want the 2W minus 11 to be, it needs to be the same thing here as what's here. Okay. So I can see, yep, 14W divided by 7 is 2W minus 77, negative 77 divided by 7 is a negative 11. Excuse me. Okay. Now I'm going to common factor out the 2w minus 11. I'm pulling that out of both of these, and when I do that, when I common factor it out, it leaves me with a w on this side, and then over here when I take away the 2w minus 11, it leaves me with plus 7. There's my two factors. I set both of these equal to 0. Then I divide here, I solve this, 2w minus 11 equals 0. I add 11 to both sides and divide both sides by 2. That gives me 11 halves, or 5 1/2. And then this one would, if I subtract 7, I get w equals negative 7. But remember, we're talking about length and width, that can't be negative. So we know our width is 5 1/2, and in this case we are talking about meters. 5 1/2 meters. Okay, and then let's find out what our length is. We can do that by plugging it back into our original equation, one of our original equations here. Length equals 2 times the width plus 3. Width is 5 1/2, or I'm going to rewrite it as 11 halves plus 3. So the 2's cancel, leaves me with 11 plus 3, which is 14. Okay? So length is 14 meters.